All right. Hi, everyone. Very interesting to actually hear two talks from coaches, and both of them had their subject called David. I don't know if the same David from yesterday, but before I'm going to become someone else's David, I'm going to speak for myself. So, hi, I'm Greg. I'm CPTO at Clue, one of the first and biggest period tracking and female health apps. Over the past 15 years, I've led multiple teams through a lot of changes. Hypergrowth, international expansion, replatformings, mergers, layoffs, you name it. And I don't message people at night. I don't expect overtime. I don't reward performative hustle. I genuinely believe in creating a space for people to work with focus and finish their day without guilt. But I also be lying if I said that I don't feel pressure from fear, guilt, or ego myself. Especially when I don't respond to something fast enough, or when I miss a big meeting, or when someone else is visible before I am. Over the years, I tried to build teams that don't run on anxiety or fear, but I also spent these years quietly carrying this anxiety and fear myself. So this talk is not about how to manage your team better. It's definitely not about AI. It's more about how to manage yourself, especially when you're trying to lead responsibly in today's culture that rewards presence over perspective. So thanks to this talk, I finally read a book that was sitting on my shelf for a while. It's called Sense of Urgency by John Kotter. He shared that 70% of large-scale change efforts fail. But 10% that managed to achieve more than anyone expected them to achieve, all created a strong sense of urgency. He also draws a line between real and false urgency. So real urgency is focused, shared, relevant, and tied to something meaningful. False urgency is reactive, scattered, and often driven by fear, ego, or a need to appear involved. Like message after message, meeting after meeting, all these endless silver bullet projects with work groups, task forces, tiger teams. And the tricky part is, in today's culture, the false urgency usually feels more important and definitely easier than the real thing. So let me tell you two stories. The first one starts on the beach. So it's a nice photo. The quality is not great. That's an iPhone from 10 years ago. I took that photo from under a tree on Koh Pota in Thailand. Stunning place, calm. People around me were swimming, relaxing, enjoying the view. I was under that tree, on my phone, with my manager chatting about issue on our platform. Was I on call? No. Could I fix the issue? No. Did we have people who could? Yes, and many. Yet I responded anyway. Because that was the culture. Being available was seen as a proxy for being worthy. And it wasn't always coming from nowhere. It could be that my manager was exercising his authority and trying to be extra visible in front of the CEO. Or he wanted to appear relevant, like he was trying to do everything he possibly could to resolve an incident. I also didn't want to feel that I don't fit for the role. So we both stayed in the channel. And it didn't make me more useful, didn't make him a better manager, it didn't resolve anything. It created unnecessary pressure on everyone, it ruined my day, and no one benefited. So this is false urgency. And it's not about fixing the incident that harms the business. It's about how we want to be seen. It burns people out, and it's very easy to fall into it, even when we know better. So here's another story. We had to rewrite our app at Clue. Our ability to deliver value was blocked by legacy code. We couldn't iterate fast enough. and our business was facing failure. It is very classic CTO framing of the problem. But it was really business critical. And as it often happens with rewrite projects, it started well, with a lot of enthusiasm. We had very optimistic timelines. But then scope started to creep. Key people left midway. Detractors showed up. Fear of failure that would release something underwhelming and frustrated our users started pushing timelines farther. But we noticed it early and acted quickly. We managed to align the board, executive team, engineers, and the wider org on the importance of this rewrite. I created enough pressure to ensure that it doesn't become a side project or just a tech thing, because I believed it was the thing. We, as a management team, took accountability and supported our team when the first negative feedback started coming in after the initial release. But we didn't panic. We didn't look for a blame. We pushed through with relentless focus on delivery and fast iterations. Something that prior to this rewrite was really, really hard. And we didn't burn anyone out. We focused and delivered. And once we started shipping new value, we shifted our company from decline back to growth. Very few companies actually managed to have such a clear turnaround on metric of active users. And that's what real urgency should feel like. It's not loud, it's not performative, it doesn't mean panic. It is clear, it moves everyone in the same direction, and it's fast. So that turnaround didn't come from hustle, it came from our shared focus on something meaningful. So what happens when false urgency becomes the default? And it's not about big, dramatic, company-wide overtime moments. It's the quiet expectations, the unspoken rules, the culture. Research shows it's not just about time, it's about energy. There's a concept called techno-stress, and it's not about deciding which techno party you're going to go this weekend in Berlin. It's a mental toll of being digitally overstimulated all the time. Our daily collaboration is driven less by purpose, more by hyperactivity. It's reactive by default, and it doesn't result in better outcomes. It's not just the volume of messages we receive, it's the fragmentation, the toggling, the constant low-grade tension of, oh, maybe that one notification is really important, so I should check it. And there is also a structural mismatch that makes this worse. Paul Graham wrote about makers versus managers schedule. Makers, like engineers, designers, or strategic thinkers, need long, uninterrupted blocks of time to do work we claim to value. Problem solving, system thinking, good design. Managers, on the other hand, are operating in 30-minute time slots and better tolerate context switching. But in today's hybrid setup, everyone started operating more on the manager schedule. Slack pings, ad hoc calls, quick check-ins, it's all designed for responsiveness, not depth. And also every context switch has a cost, and this cost is getting higher every year. So there is a research from Gloria Mark from the mid-2000s that shows knowledge workers managed around 11 minutes of focus time before getting interrupted, and it took them around 25 minutes to get back to the original work. Developers are hit even harder. In 2024, a Duke Vanderbilt study found that developers managed to have 10-15 minutes of coding before an interruption, and it takes them on average 45 minutes to fully recover context. But where are you going to get these minutes? GitHub report from last year suggests that with as many as 150 interruptions per day, developers are left with 3 minutes of, I don't even know if you can call it focus. It's just, I think it was a presentation yesterday talking about that they have 42 minutes in total during the day for coding. So yeah, that's just, 42 minutes of coding. And this year's Microsoft Trend Index shows the pattern is no longer limited to developers only. In general, digital workers face around 275 interruptions per day, roughly 1 every 2 minutes. And more than half of them describe their work as chaotic and fragmented, with very little time left for deep focus on deep work. And this isn't sustainable. Not for managers, not for makers. Just think about your last week. How many times did you get interrupted or had to switch context where you actually wanted to focus on something? How did it make you feel at the end of the day? And what did it mean for people around you? And it's not only productivity at risk. I hope you listened to Kara's presentation yesterday. It was super interesting about neuroscience of stress. But each interruption amplifies pressure on energy and on well-being. Research confirms that interruption also trigger emotional strain, fatigue, anxiety, frustration, even guilt and withdrawal. And that brings me back to something I felt personally. So, yeah, this part is a bit harder to talk about because it's not external, it's internal. So imagine we fixed all the false urgency. From the outside, my teams look healthy, there is no crisis response theater, there are no Slack messages at midnight. But even in healthy teams, this pressure persists. It lives in the gap between what we model and what we feel. And I still feel the pressure. So I felt it when I didn't respond to something fast enough. I felt it when the CEO joined an incident channel before I am. I felt it when one of my senior engineers refused to join paid on-call, setting the boundary I never gave myself permission to set. And this pressure isn't rational, it's learned. And I bet I'm not the only one who feels that way. It is driven by emotions and also shows up in different forms. Like FOMO, for example, it's not about missing context. It's about losing control. Like, oh, if I didn't join this marketing meeting, they might make a wrong call. Guilt is not about an action. It's anxiety about whether I have done enough. Like, oh, I missed this tag in one of the threads. People will think I'm ignorant or irresponsible. Frustration, sometimes it's ego disguised as standards, like you're a manager, you should always be available without any extra reward. Sometimes it's lack of self-fulfillment. As we used to code and create, now we inject ourselves into everything, even if we are coding, or especially if we are coding, even if it's not needed. But we just trade participation for visibility. And that turns into urgency for everyone around us. And the hard part is, when you're trying to lead responsibly, is that you don't pass this pressure on. You hold it yourself. You don't act on it, you carry it quietly. Maybe leadership is learning how to identify and carry the false urgency without leaking it. And I wish I could say, I figured it out, I know how to solve it, gave you a list of rules, a run book, a framework, but unfortunately, I have not. Most of the time, I'm just trying to notice when I'm drifting. I learned that I won't stop feeling urgency, but I don't need to act on all of it. I'm trying to catch myself when I'm doing something for visibility, not value. Join channels where I don't have to be in, responding too fast to something that could wait, filling my day with low stakes but visible work to avoiding slow, hidden, but important stuff. Just rehearsing that, I remembered, okay, on Monday I spent half an hour trying to fix the door in the office instead of filling the long questionnaire that partnership team was waiting for me to do. And I was like, oh, they might be freaking out because it's almost the end of the day. I'm trying to notice when I take something that isn't mine or worrying about things that I can't control. Like that time when engineer refused to join an on-call. So I could have pressured them into that. I could have exercised my authority, played a CTO card. Or when CEO joined an incident channel before me. So I felt guilt for not acting too fast. But that wasn't about them. That was about me. And I basically had to sit with that. I let it pass. And guess what? When it really mattered, that engineer was the first one to show up without even being asked, because they recognized the true urgency. And when I wasn't available and CEO, as usually, joined an incident channel, engineers felt calm and support because it wasn't noisy, it wasn't performative, it was visible and grounded. So in real life, leadership, I believe, doesn't show up as a big moment, like, hey, how you seen how I just led you? It's a skill of recognizing the type of urgency and the quiet choice. Do I pass it on, or do I let it stop with me? Again, think back, when was the last time you had to make a choice like that? And what impact did it have on your team? And those choices, repeated every day and multiplied across leaders, become the signals that shape the culture. So pressure doesn't go away because we introduced new set of rules or started scheduling messages for 9 a.m. instead of sending them at midnight. Urgency isn't about working more or faster. It's also not a technical problem that we could solve with more tools or services or AI. It's a leadership signal problem. It changes when leaders stop rewarding urgency for the sake of it. It softens when we stop needing to be seen all the time. And it shifts when we realize the pressure we hold and choose not to pass it on. So I'm not asking you to change your culture. Just ask yourself 2 questions. What signals am I sending without realizing it? And what pressure am I carrying that no one asked me to? Urgency isn't bad, but when it becomes the default, we forget how to tell the false from the real. So it all starts with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if we've got some questions for you. I think there's 2 or 3. Okay. Oh, somebody's voted. Well done. So from Simon, how do you deal with the urgency created by the CEO's latest idea? Simon's had a bad day.
Well, I mean, probably you need to know the character of your CEO and how to build the relationship with them. So if it's just the constant generation of new ideas that they forget the next day, So you'll probably just show your excitement about that idea, and it'll go away the next morning. So it really depends on the persona of your CEO.
We'll go with another question. Shouldn't we teach how to set boundaries to our engineers? While mentoring some engineers, I noticed that they did not know that no was an option.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, I mean, again, it also depends on what is the culture that you want to build. So if, for example, don't want your engineers to ever question you, then that's probably like you wouldn't be teaching them to set these boundaries. So you'll be executing, like exercising your authority. But in general, it again, like it really depends on the culture, what you currently need to achieve as a company, as a business.
And last but not least, what would you have done differently if you could go back to that moment at the beach?
Well, I would definitely not pick it up. Definitely. I left the months after this incident, so yeah, like 100%, I wouldn't respond.
Okay. Probably some lessons for me there this morning. Well, thank you for your questions. Thanks to Greg.
Cheers.
Thank you.